Vasishta continued, O Ram, doing what is appropriate at all times, the mind should not be attached to the action, the thoughts, or the object. The last chapter was concerned about conditioning. And this happens when the attention comes into contact with something and loses itself in what it comes into contact with. And that's attachment. First there's contact, then there's attachment. And then the attention is no longer its own master. But after dispassion has arisen, after the attention has got loosened from the things which have hijacked it, and which continuously threaten to hijack it, and then once it's perceived its own nature, or become aware of its own nature, we've got some perspective on things. We've got a perspective on how we've been lost up to this point, and how we're being continuously derailed. The stories that we've heard in the Yoga Vasishta normally involve a period of withdrawal. After somebody's realised this state of affairs, there's a period of withdrawal. And it seems like they want nothing to do with the world. But then they come back and they get on with what is appropriate. They get on with doing what is appropriate, but no longer getting attached to what they're doing. No longer getting attached to their thoughts or notions of objects or things out there, or people out there even. And this next chapter is very much about not getting attached. And we should be careful about this. This seems like we're spreading the idea that we should be callous and indifferent. The thing is, the attention does have to come into contact with things whenever we need to accomplish something. But it's about being attached. We don't get attached to that. We can be involved without being attached. And this is the skill. This is spiritual practice. We're not trying to be cold or indifferent. Dispassion is not about being cold or indifferent. Non-attachment is about not being cold or indifferent. It's about not being hooked into our notions, our emotion. It's about not emotionally investing for the sake of our own personal fulfillment. So we don't get attached. We use the mind, we use the attention. We get on with what is appropriate. And in this way we can work very effectively as human beings in the world. In fact, any other way of doing things is going to be more limiting. So the mind should not be attached to the action, the thoughts, or the object. Neither should it be attached to the heavens above, nor what is below, nor in the other directions. You don't even get attached to the idea of going to heaven. In the traditions that believe in reincarnation, sometimes the goal of escape from this cycle of birth and death seems too lofty. So the best you can hope for is a good rebirth, a good reincarnation. But we don't want to even be concerned with that, really. So we don't get attached to the heavens, nor what is below, nor in the other directions. It should not be bound to external relations, to the natural movement of the inner senses, nor to the life force. So I suppose you could say we're not wanting to be attached to anything external, nor anything internal. The mind should not rest in the head, inside the palate, between the eyebrows, at the tip of the nose, or in the mouth or eyes. This is probably referring to yogic concentration practices. In other words, we're not concerned with focusing the mind on any particular object, which is part of traditional yogic meditation practice. It should not repose either in the darkness or in the light, or even in the cave of the heart. This is where the self is often described as residing in the heart. But even that's a notion which we don't go along with. The states of wakefulness, dream and sleep should not hold it, and even the wide, pure space should not be its home. We can understand wakefulness, dream and sleep here literally, in which case an interesting possibility is being suggested that somehow we can transcend these states, or we just don't get attached to them. We might go into these states, but we don't remain in them, we come out of them. Or we could understand them, these states figuratively. Very often they're not to be understood literally. Wakefulness is understood as the belief in an external world, dream is ego, and sleep is the general mind stuff. This is the interpretation which is often given, or something similar, in the Yoga Vasishta, and in fact a couple of paragraphs down it refers to this. And even wide pure space should not be its home. We're space for everything, but that space is actually awareness. Unattached to the spectrum of colours, to movement and steadiness, to the beginning, the middle, the end and elsewhere. The mind should not rest either at a distance or nearby, in front, in objects or in the self. That last one seems a bit strange because this is often where we're told exactly where to put the mind. The self resting in the self, or the self being aware of the self. I think it's meaning things out there, notions of things out there, or notions of things out here. It's saying don't even get caught up in the idea that somehow there's an inner reality which is more important than an outer reality. We don't want to get caught up in that at all. Any notions of an outer or an inner reality. We're not making that division between thoughts and objects. We're not resting in either of them. Sense experiences, the deluded state of happiness, concepts and percepts should have no hold over the mind. In other words, the mind holds on to nothing. The mind takes refuge in nothing except its own essential nature, which is what the next paragraph says.